Yeah, good evening all. My role here tonight is to give you an overview of the Green Wattle Creek fire from its go to where we are today. The Green Wattle Creek fire started on the 26th of November following a passing of a fairly significant electrical storm, and it was detected in the morning of the 27th of November. Also, during the passage of the same storm, there was two other fires started, one called the Cowmung River Fire, which was directly to the west of it, and also the Pigs Fire, which was to the southwest of it and west of Urandry. And I'm sure most people here would know where the village of Urandry is. On the 27th of November, we inserted the remote area firefighting teams into the area where the fire was. It's not accessible by trucks or anything like that where it was, and also they had air support with them. During the passage of their time in there, of course, the weather did change significantly and the fire behaviour started to increase, and all of those remote area firefighters were taken out of the fireground for their own safety. During the third day, of course, we were able to put them in again, but the same thing did occur. We have this recurring thing of an afternoon, of course, when fire activity increases significantly. On the third day, there was a significant run of the large air tanker to try and prevent the fire moving towards the east. This was successful in slowing it down overnight. However, the next morning we found that the fire had taken a dive and was now heading towards the village of Urandry. For anyone that knows Urandry, of course, it's an historic village, and we certainly didn't want to see any major damage there. So there were plans put in place for a major backburn that went around the village of Urandry, and I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of 2.5 days before that was completed. I can proudly say on behalf of all the firefighters, etc., that did participate in that particular activity, that the village of Urandry now stands unscathed. And I think it's a testament to the people that were working on it. During the next couple of days, of course, the fire started to advance towards Lake Burragorang, and I'm sure everyone in your own mind's eye will picture where I'm at now. We're on the western side of Lake Burragorang, and the fire advanced there, and through significant aerial support that fire was slowed down, and other activities were commenced with backburning along the southern edge of the fire, along the road that runs from Lakesland across the scheduled waters of Lake Burragorang and up towards the village of Urandry. In the meantime, of course, the Cowmung River Fire, which was west of the one, as I've already mentioned, started to increase in size, and there was no way that we could get any trucks or anything into that. We just had to let it go for the time being and slow it down as best we could with aerial attacks. The fire eventually started to move very, very close to Lake Burragorang, and I think it was in the vicinity of 3 days we tried desperately to ensure that the fire did not come across Lake Burragorang, but unfortunately again the weather was against us and a spot landed over just to the north of Natai. It landed actually during the late afternoon, and until light had gone throughout the day, crews supported by aerial appliances, etc., worked on that fire to try and maintain its position. The next morning, of course, again, weather being against us, ground crews did go in there, but the fire went up the escarpment to the west, I think it was, to the north of the Wallandilly Washery, which most of you may know, and it started to take a run on the northern side of Burragorang Road towards Oakdale. What happened over the next 2 days, I'm sure most of you are aware of, and that is it took that run towards Stevie's Forest Road and then north of New Jerusalem Road in Oakdale, and headed up towards Silverdale Road. The crews worked tirelessly through the night to contain that fire as best they could, it did not cross Silverdale Road on that occasion. One of the things that's significant in this particular fire, and I'll make a comment about it in a moment, is that that fire was crowning at 3 o'clock in the morning. And for most of the firefighters who just put their hand up would know that that's usually quite rare. The next day, of course, again, westerly winds, high temperatures, low humidity, and towards the afternoon the fire broke its containment again, headed across Silverdale Road and impacted on properties in the Orangeville and Warumbi area. It wasn't until late in the afternoon when the weather moderated somewhat before the fire progress could be arrested, and it was pulled up before it went towards Teresa Park. I have no doubt that the people that were affected by that fire understand now the dynamics of it, in how large it can get, how quickly it can spread, and how dangerous it can be. There have been a number of property losses in the area. Following that, there was a decision made, because the fire was tracking to the north and west of Silverdale Road, that something had to be done about Warragamba to protect that, and there was a strategic backburn put in, starting at Warragamba, heading south, but still west of Silverdale Road. That activity had taken probably 3 days before there was some significant areas now that would be safe to say that was going to protect Warragamba quite significantly. Following that, the fire started to move down to the south, and obviously it was heading towards or the western side of villages such as Lakesland and also Thornmere. The comment that I'd like to make, because as you can see, this fire at that stage of the game was well over a week and a half long, and I'd like to just make a comment that I don't think many people here will counter. There is not one person in this room tonight that has ever lived in the conditions that we are experiencing at the moment. Not only do we have the prolonged drought, but we also have absolutely no moisture in the ground. And a combination of the drought, the effect on the vegetation, and the absence of any moisture in the ground is a correlation between that and fire behaviour. Now, if you don't need, or if you need any more evidence of this, can I just take your mind back to August this year? The fires started in the northern part of New South Wales and today are still burning. The Gospers Mountain Fire, which is north of the Hawkesbury River, stretches from Mangrove Mountain, if you can picture that again in your mind's eye, all the way up to nearly Mudgee, and is now burnt in the vicinity in excess of 300,000 hectares, is uncontained and is still burning. And there were reports the other day of it dropping into the Grace Valley. These conditions, by some firefighters' measures, have indicated that they've never ever seen fire conditions like we're experiencing at the moment. So that's why, at the moment, there is some difficulty in putting this fire out. The fire that we've got here now has grown to just over 155,000 hectares, and has a perimeter around it of over 700 kilometres. The efforts that have been put in by our firefighters, and we've had firefighters coming from just about every surrounding district around the Southern Highlands, including down at the coast and up north to the northern beaches, have been significant in the control of the fire. There was a decision made tactically that a backburn would be put in down on the western interface of all of the villages south of Oakdale. That commenced quite some days ago now, and I invite all of you, I know it's going to be difficult because of the crowd here, but I invite all of you not to leave here tonight until you've had a look at the maps that are out there on the wall that we've placed up, so that you can see exactly where the fire came from, exactly where the fire is as of today, and the tremendous work that's been done by all of our firefighters in regard to the backburning down there. This fire is uncontained and is likely to be uncontained for some time yet. So I just take you back to the conditions that we're under and what's happening elsewhere in the state. We have prepared some communities for the possibility of impact of fire. In fact, I was supposed to be at a meeting tonight with a village that's supposed to be impacted by fire tomorrow. But because this meeting was called, I'm here, and we had to speak to that community today. They are going to be impacted likely by fire tomorrow. Now, there has been also, with the strategic containment lines that have been put in, a mineral earth line that goes from Colo Vale all the way out to past Mount Warong. Now, just to give you a picture in your mind again of where we're at here, we're not in Wallandilly anymore. We are, of course, naturally in Wallandilly, but this fire now stretches through 4 LGAs. Not only is it in Wingecarribee now, it's in the Upper Lachlan, and it's in the Oberon Shire, and it's heading towards points north of there, and is likely to join up with the ruined castle fire from the Blue Mountains. You might be wondering what happened to the Cowmung River fire, and you might be wondering what happened to the Peaks fire. They've all combined. That's why we've got such a big fire ground here at the moment. What's my message to you? My message to you is the same as we've given everyone, is 5 points. 5 points I'd like you to go away from this meeting tonight and consider. The first one is, we want you to continue to monitor the fire. How can you do that? Everyone that has a smartphone should have Fires Near Me on it, because that will give you a very, very good indication of where the fire is, and will give you additional information if you like to look through the way it works, the app works, in regard to updates of what's going on. For those that are fairly new to Fires Near Me, I'll just give you a little bit of a plug that there was a recent update to that, or upgrade to that, and you can now set a watch zone up to 50 kilometres away from wherever you want to set it. So if you set it with Bargo in the middle and you put it for 50 kilometres, every fire that pops up will give you an alarm. The other one is that we've asked everyone, and we've done this through radio, we've done it through print media, we've asked everyone to monitor the Facebook page of RFS Southern Highlands team. The call has been taken by many because we've gone from 19,000 before this fire started to 33,000 people that are now watching us. And the feedback that we're getting and the questions that continually come in on there are being answered, and the feedback we're getting is very positive. The other source of information that you should be watching or going to is the New South Wales Rural Fire Service website, www.rfs.nsw.gov.au, and our fire is there in the major fire updates. And that on an average is updated twice a day depending on the activity, and that's where you should go. So that's point number one, continue to monitor the fire. Point number two is you should review your bushfire survival plan. Now, reviewing it doesn't mean you just have a look at it on the fridge or wherever you've got it. It means that you pull it down and you sit down with all of your family, and I mean all of your family, so that each and every one of your family knows what they should do if they're impacted by fire. If you don't have a bushfire survival plan, and it doesn't have to be the one that we give to you free of charge, it doesn't have to be that, it can be another form if you wish to, but the important thing is that every member of your family knows what they're going to do. I certainly hope that the families that were impacted by fire up the Orangeville and Warumbi areas a week and a half ago had all of their plans in place, because they had to act very, very quickly. The third point I make to you is you need to be ready to act very, very quickly if the situation changes. And again, I refer to the people up north in those two villages north of Oakdale, that if they weren't ready to move, there could have been dire consequences. So make sure they're the three main points. The fourth point I want to make is that you really need to know what the fire danger rating is on a daily basis during the bushfire season. Why? Because the higher the bushfire danger rating, the more dangerous it is for you, the more active the fire is going to be, the quicker it's going to get bigger and the more dangerous it will become. Now, the Commissioner of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service has declared a total fire ban from today through to Saturday and all of Saturday. The fire danger rating for tomorrow is extreme. Extreme. Now, that's one short of catastrophic. I don't care if it goes to catastrophic. It's bad enough when it gets to very high. Not so long ago, we lost 84 homes in a fire that was burning in very high fire danger. So don't be fooled because it's over this side of the clock. You have to be aware on all of those sections, and the higher it gets, the more dangerous it becomes. On Saturday, I'll go Thursday first. Tomorrow, I've already told you that it's going to be extreme and the conditions tomorrow will be as bad as they could be. We are expecting a change from the northwest. We're expecting a change from the northwest up to the very high 30s with very low humidity. Therefore, from that, of course, there will be expected to be at least an increase in fire activity. The fifth point is the emergency alerts that we send out to you. Now, I'm going to ask you again, if you've got any interest in how we do this, they are marked. We've marked them especially on two of the maps out there where the emergency alerts are. And I'm responsible for working with the incident controller as the public liaison officer to ensure that we have those mapped and we have trigger points. Now, I don't want to talk about any particular trigger point applicable to this fire, but what you need to know that there will be a trigger point before you get an alert. There's two actually. There's one when it's starting to move into and we're monitoring this all the time. It's when it comes into a particular point, and that's a trigger. And that may prompt us to send you an emergency alert. And that emergency alert, the message might be simply, there is a fire in your area, you need to know about it. As it comes to the second trigger point, you may and probably will get another emergency alert. And it will go something like this. If you've got an SMS, it will read. It will read. This is the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. There is a fire in your area and it is just about to impact on you. Now, it might not be exactly verbatim like that, but just take it from you that that's similar to what it will be. And there will be an instruction. And the instruction might say, if it's safe to leave, leave now. More dire than that, it might say, it is unsafe to leave now, take shelter. Or something similar to that. Excuse me. One for you, sir. Okay. Thank you very much. You led me in well. The emergency alert is very important because it's actually giving you an indication of what this fire is doing as it applies to you. I would imagine that there wouldn't be too many people in this room tonight that have not received something from the New South Wales Rural Fire Service in regard to an emergency alert. Okay, it doesn't matter the techniques of how we do it, but you have a look at the polygons up there and you'll see where we start the process and when it's decided that that message needs to go out, it will happen. We make it happen. How does it arrive at you? Two methods. The first one is SMS. Now, unfortunately, the SMS system, of course, feeds off the towers all around the place, and you could be visiting from Bullamakenka, and all of a sudden you're told to go and shelter in place. Unfortunately, that can't be worked out of the system. It's something that you have to bear with if you come from Bullamakenka, that is, and you would see that message come. But for you people that are living within the area, you will know, because you'll know there's fire in the area, and there will be specific instructions what to do. The second method, of course, is by the landline. Now, I hear all the time about landline problems, and I'm not here to solve those tonight by any means, but with the NBN, etc., there are issues with landlines. But if you've got a landline that's working, it will go to your home, because in the polygon you'll be in this, your home will be picked up in the polygon, and the system will actually ring you 5 times. I don't mean 5 rings, 5 times. So if you don't answer the first time, it will ring again. And I understand that if you have an answering machine, it will leave the message on the answering machine, but if you're not at home, that's probably not too good. If you have a silent number, it will ring. That's how we do it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to tell you is about the fire danger ratings. Now, I went through that, didn't I? I'm going to now ask for Superintendent Greg Rankin to come up from Fire Rescue New South Wales to run through some operational aspects of the fire as it is today.
Thanks, David. You're probably wondering, we put our phones to silence. You're probably wondering what a person from Fire Rescue New South Wales is doing up here talking to you about a bushfire. I suppose I'll just give a quick background of where I came from. So I joined in 1987, so I've been here for 32 years. My first bushfire was in 1988, a year after I joined. Since then, I've had many opportunities, unfortunately, to go to a lot of bushfires, and quite recently spent 6 weeks in Canada working on the fires over there in British Columbia. At the time, it was the largest bushfires that British Columbia had ever seen, and topped the 1965 fires, which were then the biggest. To put that in perspective, where we're sitting now with the fires here, in 1994, which everyone would consider a very bad fire year, we had 810,000 hectares and numerous homes lost in that. We are now sitting for this season, and the other one was 2001, obviously, that was 1.1 million hectares. So across the state, we're sitting at 2.95 million hectares of fire, with 756 homes lost. We are definitely in, as David pointed out, uncharted territory. So by no means is the resourcing of all these fires to underestimate is a very difficult and very time-consuming thing, which we're all undertaking. I have been part of the incident management team from the 28th of November. I've been working with the planning team and the operational team throughout that period. I also want to thank all the firefighters that are here this evening for the tireless work they've undertaken. My own teams have been working all up and down the coast, and in fact the local brigades have been spent a lot of time up in the Northern Rivers fires and all that. I've now pulled them all back to here because of this, and they've been here with us on the fire since day one that I've been here on the 28th of November, and they're rolling over every day. And I quite imagine that there's a lot of firefighters in this room and other emergency services personnel that have given a lot of time. And one thing that I'm mindful of is the fatigue that's taking, not just on the firefighters, but probably on the community and the communities of New South Wales. And that's something that we talk about on a daily basis. Myself, with our emergency management partners, police and other services, discussing today not just the impact of the fire, but the impact of the heatwave conditions and smoke, with westerly winds coming again, on the communities of New South Wales, and particularly the communities here, and how we're going to cope with that. So you'll see the state heatwave plan activated already, and that will continue on and probably for the next 3 or 4 days. So a significant drain of resources across all aspects of the emergency services. I'm having daily planning meetings with my team and with the RFS, and I can tell you now in our incident management team, we're all one team. There is definitely no us and them. We know it's one team, and we now have been joined by 3 members from the United States to assist us with this fire. Operationally, where are we at? So, as David pointed out, we are fighting this fire pretty much on all fronts. I'm having daily hookups with Blue Mountains and the overall people, talking about such things as how do we save Genolan Caves. And that's a real and present danger that we're going to be facing in the next few days. So, the part that you're down in this area here, we have a strategic backburn that we're undertaking has occurred and has been occurring the whole time we've been at this fire, and it's continued to occur, and that's continuing tonight and overnight in Seabrook Avenue. So you will see an increase probably in fire activity and smoke, but this is one of our best opportunities with the milder the wind, which is always a factor, and as David pointed out, at 3 o'clock in the morning when you've got a crowding fire, that is a really danger. So that will be occurring tonight, and in fact just before we came to this meeting, the incident management team made the decision that we'll be raising the alert level to watch and act. Why are we doing that? It's because of the increase in fire activity and smoke. We didn't want to do it prior to coming to this meeting and put everyone in a state of worry. We wanted to explain why we're doing that, and obviously we can explain that to you why we're doing it, but there'll be a lot of people that are probably not at this meeting who will need to have information about that. So once we do finish this meeting, we're going back to put that out, and so people are aware of what is going on. So we hope to have that, as much as that backburning operation is completed into the night, and we are called for many resources through the stretch resourcing of all the other fires that are competing for the same resources, and we'll hope to have that completed tonight. So I just wanted to give you an update of that's what's occurring pretty much in your locality here this afternoon and this evening and into the night. We also have, and this is where particularly my crews are to allow all the Rural Fire Service specialist trucks to get into the off-road. We're taking them off the spot fires and different other things that may come up during the night, and Fire Rescue New South Wales will be supporting those local brigades so they can undertake this very important backburning work, and you'll probably see Fire Rescue New South Wales trucks from the top of Warragamba, where we're still getting calls to little fires here and there, stumps generally, and they'll be covering from the top of Warragamba down here to Colo. So that's how we're doing our plans. We have had that team in overnight, every night, and we'll continue to do so. We've also managed to secure the services of a bulk water supply, which we'll be bringing down tomorrow, and we'd like to thank Toll Logistics for helping us out with that. And there are a number of those being placed at strategic fires around generally the Greater Sydney area. I'm also working with our partners, like I said, to the north of our fire, up as the fires up there and the impact that these dry northwesterly winds could move the fire in different directions into other fires and may join up. Yeah, so that's a quick overview of where we're at operationally. Obviously there's a lot of other things being put together, and every night the planning team plan for tomorrow's activities, but we never stop. There's an incident management team working 24/7 and have been since the 28th of November. And we're committed. We've already planned that Christmas Day, I know where I'll be. We'll be in the Picton Fire Control Centre. I'll get Stephen to come up now to talk to you about some of the emergency management arrangements that will be occurring. Thank you.
obviously I'm not here to talk about the fires, I'll leave that to the experts here. Just give you a rundown with what we've been doing since probably the 3rd of December. Okay, we've had a police liaison officer working in the incident management team at the Fire Control Centre since then. Obviously, the conditions on this, remember the Thursday, the 5th and the 6th, where it was the extreme weather, I think it was over 40 degrees back then as well. We actually had an emergency operations centre set up then as well. Okay, and due to the extent of the weather tomorrow, okay, and on Saturday, decision's been made that we're going to open up the emergency operations centre tomorrow as well. Okay, what that means to you is just to let you know. Okay, there will be a staging area set up at the Camden Equestrian Centre for all animals. Okay, that's been opened up since 4 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, but the League Home wanted to make sure that you guys were first to know. Okay, and that will also go on the RFS on their website as of after this meeting. Okay, also in place, we have got on standby an evacuation centre. Okay, that'll be done at Narellan Community Centre. Okay, we are looking at setting up a second one as well. Okay, which we are looking at probably down Picton or Bargo. Okay, once we have that information and once it's confirmed, we'll again put it on the website and we'll go from there. Okay, but as I said, it is on standby. It's not set up at this stage. Okay, however, if you do decide to self-evacuate tomorrow, okay, if you do end up at the Narellan Community Centre and no one is there, ring Narellan Police Station, okay, and we'll get someone down there straight away. Okay, as soon as we get down there, we'll contact welfare and then we'll set it up and open it up for you. Okay, but just make sure, don't think it is open straight away. We have to activate it from the EOC, okay, but you let us know, that you are going there. Alright, so that's about all from me, okay. Just for tomorrow, the next few days, just to let you know where we stand, above our first response, we've actually got additional crews working in the area, okay. Also got traffic and fire patrols set up to do extra road closures if need be. We've also got operational support group from Bass Hill working in the area, so if there is evacuations, and I stress if there is, okay, they'll also do patrols around that, assist with the evacuations, and they'll also be doing patrols of local crews, and that's if there's any potential later on, like glitches or anything like that. But that's just in case. That's just something that we foresee, and that's there's been no report of it, but we just want to make sure that we will be patrolling the area to make sure your houses are safe. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen. There is a handheld mobile mic that we've moved around. It's been waved there. For those of you who have questions, if I could just start that by asking, how would I put it, the proven fire path, if this sort of should blow up badly, would be that it would come through Balmoral, Buxton, through here and probably finish up down the coast. Worst case scenario, that's what's happened in the past. Could you just give us an idea of what the strategies are for those villages as far as trying to protect them? Thanks.
There has been some fires in the past that have travelled the path that you've just mentioned, and that's been certainly worked into the plans, etc. But the backburn that is been started a couple of days ago has now, and again the map will show you where it's gone to, and we believe that area, that traditional path up through Thornley Lakes and so on, has been locked in.
So if there's anything you'd like to ask, can you put your hand up and we'll get the microphone to you as quickly as we can. Yes, there's one over here, sis, up the front here. Lady right over there.
Just got two questions. One's about stock and one's about the fires near the app. With the fires near the app, how do you decipher what is actually back burning and what is the fire out of control? because that's probably one that's really tricked us. And the other one's about the stock. You mentioned that Camden Equestrian Centre. Is that set up for sheep and goats? And because that's what our main stock is.
Yeah.
It is.
The last staging area we had the lambs, we had goats, we actually had 2 emus as well.
Oh.
We paid for all that.
Yeah.
Sorry, for those who didn't know the answer off the bat, the staging area at Camden does cater for all animals, including the 2 emus, wasn't it? Yeah, 2. So if you've got your pet emus, you'll be right. Any other questions? Yes?
Just a question in regard to fires near me. I'd have to start by apologising to everyone on behalf of the service, because over the last week and a half it has suffered some inconsistencies, if you like. But the mapped area that you see on fires near me includes both the fire and the back burning. So it's a combined thing. And unfortunately it doesn't move as the fire moves, it moves as the mapping details are uploaded. So that could be 2 or 3 times a day. But I know that it has suffered, and we certainly got a number of phone calls when I think the diamond moved from over where it started to into the Oaks, I think it was, and that was incorrect. But of course, all the fires in New South Wales suffered the same issue.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
saw a hand over here. Yep, there's a couple of...
Hello.
One there.
I've got a question about, with regard to volunteering. This bushfire emergency is going to obviously go on for some weeks yet. And rather than pushing our luck and asking for volunteers to keep volunteering, I'm just wondering what plans are being considered about recompense for companies who are releasing employees for bushfire emergencies and self-employed people. I mean, this is something that we haven't obviously had to do before, but it's probably needs thinking about, because, as I say, we're pushing our luck to try and get local employers to release people on an ongoing basis. I mean, we all appreciate what they're doing, but somehow we've got to recompense them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, we do agree with you. In actual fact, our service, and I believe the SES service also, does have a program where they recognise employers that do support the efforts of the volunteers, and they're recognised, I think, on an annual basis with awards, etc. It is true, however, that in the economic climate that we've got today, with full employment and so on, there seems to be a reluctance, and I can understand that, with a lot of employees to let employees go. I guess it comes down also to self-employed people, that the decision really has to be theirs as to whether they are going to volunteer or not in regard to their work, but that's a decision they make. There's another argument as well that you haven't mentioned, and that is that there's been a move afoot to somehow pay our volunteers in some way. Believe it or not, and I think this just is indicative of the ethos of volunteers in Australia, most say we don't want payment. We get enough out of what we do in serving the community. And I think that the issue of payment for volunteers is one that will never be resolved, but most don't want it.
Yeah, hello, I'm from Colo Vale. I live in a house that's all timber construction, so our plan is to leave if the fire gets too close. But the community centre at Colo Vale is listed as like a place to go if you can't get out of Colo Vale. Does that mean there's fire resources will be on scene at the community centre?
The answer simply is no. We have a number, well, right throughout the state, we have many neighbourhood safer places. That's what they're called. They are called the place of last resort. And I would absolutely recommend to each and every one of you in writing up your bushfire survival plan that the neighbourhood safer place is not in your plan as where you're going to go. It's there if everything else, it's more or less like a plan B. But of course, wherever they are sited, you have to make sure that if you do travel from your home to the neighbourhood safer place, that it is also safe to do so. In regard to the neighbourhood safer places here in both Wallumbilla and Wingecarribee, you're in Wingecarribee, sir, there has been an incredible amount of money expended through the support of the RFS with councils in putting in water tanks and pumps and hoses in all of the buildings, if they are buildings, that is. There are a number of neighbourhood safer places that are not buildings, they're open area, and I can thoroughly recommend that if you're going there, that's your decision to go there during a fire event. Don't expect deck chairs and ice creams, because it won't be there. You'll be very, very uncomfortable, but at least it's been deemed to be a safer place.
Can I just add to that? Wherever you get that emergency alert and that area has come up, that if that neighbourhood safer place or that area is in that footprint, then we've deemed it that you shouldn't be there. Okay, so that's probably a good indication of where we're expecting people not to go. If it's a last resort, as David pointed out, then yes, okay. But reality is, we'll be doing our best with our resourcing on the day to put any threatened assets that we can protect. Now, I'll just talk from a fire rescue perspective. We get one house fire, and we put 4 pumps onto it. So I just want you to bear in mind that we won't have 4 pumps at every house fire in these heightened conditions. And that's one thing that I've seen. I was at, in 2013 at the Blue Mountains, where we lost 200 homes in a matter of 4 hours. And I can tell you, it's not a day I want to relive too many times. And it set a lot of people that worked on that over the edge that never came back to firefighting. Where that was a one-off day that occurred. Those days seem to be happening more and more regular. So I'm just pointing it out there. I'm not trying to be the doom and gloom, but I'm just saying we had firefighters who were hooking up hose lines and watching 3 homes catch alight multiple. It was all about saving life. And I suppose the best thing about this fire so far, and the team and all the volunteers and everyone that's been working on it, we have no loss of life. And if that's the heightened thing in our plan, is that we have no loss of life. We will get to those periods, and the incident controller, and I've been in that situation, I've had to make a call, let the place burn, we're saving life. And I'll tell you, it's a very hard decision to make, to watch someone's property, but I don't want to see a life lost. That's people, including firefighters. So I just want to point that out in these days where we're reaching catastrophic. And I've been to a couple of them in the Canberra bushfires about what that did, spotting well in advance of the fire.
Hi, I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, Balmoral village was scheduled to have a back boom last week when the conditions were great. Then that was canned by not our local RFS or anyone else. I'm really grateful for their services, so is everybody else here, but by someone who sits in an office at Homebush. Who is that person that said no backburning to Balmoral? When they full well know if the fire goes to Balmoral, they'll just jump over and come down to Bargo and go down the coast. Secondly, why hasn't a state of emergency been declared when it has? You can have the army here deployed when they're sitting around.
Okay, so I'll go on the state of emergency. We don't call the state of emergency as an IMT down at the Wallumbilla Section 4. Yeah, that's the Premier's decision, so I'll defer that to someone else. I don't make that decision. Sorry? Yeah, I'll go to your other question, which is about the strategic backburning that we've been doing. As we pointed out, we have 700 kilometres of this fire. There is many aspects to it. The IMT, as a team, work on a strategic plan of how we're going to work with this fire, and we've progressively been working from Warragamba down and on 4 different fronts, just not the eastern flank, about isolated communities throughout this fire front. about how we do that. And I can tell you, on being in the planning meetings, there's a lot of thought. Now, we've got firefighters on the fire ground that are saying, and we've had 6 firefighters burnt from backburning. Minor burns. I've had one tree strike from a firefighter that was hit by some water bombing, and luckily, the limb size of that could have easily killed that firefighter. There is a lot of risk in these areas, and if the firefighters on the ground are telling us to erratic fire behaviour, as we pointed out at 3 o'clock in the morning, crowning bushfires, I, as part of the incident management team, have to make strategic decisions to make sure that we don't hurt our firefighters, and also doing it in a controlled way. To do a backburn requires a lot of resources and a lot of planning, and running through the middle of this fire is also a 330,000 kV power line. We're actually backburning under that. Normally, we'd not do that. That's a very risky operation, and if anyone's worked with power lines, you'll know what 330,000 will give you. So there is a lot of decisions being made that some people might not think that the planning team, me being part of it, are making stupid decisions. Look, I can only say that there's a lot of people looking at the fire from a number of different areas. The incident management team put plans in place. We undertake backburning operations, but if it's going to be unsafe or is not in the strategic intent of how we're going to tackle this fire, and it could cause other issues, then we'll not undertake it. There was an extensive hazard reduction burn undertaken on April 2019 at the Centre Ridge, which was a large hazard reduction. Parts of the fire front to the west of that now, and I'm going on the person that undertook that burn and has done numerous hazard reductions in his 40-year firefighting career, has worked with the team and told us that that hazard reduction will significantly slow, if not stop, the spread of fire through from the western side of this fire into Balmoral. Yes, there is a small unburnt patch, which we are working, as I pointed out tonight, to lock that off. We've had numerous runs from the large air tanker this afternoon, and have been continuing all the time to put down some fire retardant, and that's been occurring throughout the day. So I can just say that there is a lot of plans being gone into this, and continue to go in this, and will for weeks and weeks. And by no means do we take any decision lightly or have any untoward reason why we'll be doing things. So that's all I can say from that. If people aren't happy with what the incident management team's doing, we do have a strategic plan, and we're working towards that. And as David pointed out, we've had significant wins to the north of this fire because of that strategic plan in the towns of Silverdale and Warragamba.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think everyone appreciates all the hard work that's been done by the RFS and Metropolitan Fire Brigade. But I think one of the issues is not knowing. We're told to look at the fires near me app, which, as you said previously, shows both active fires plus where you've already backburned. Because there's no colour distinction on where's been backburned, where the active fire is at the moment, I've got, if I look on fires near me at Bargo, 5 kilometres away, it's saying there's potentially a fire. So fires can move very quickly in these sort of conditions, and I think that's what's actually causing a lot of community angst, because they're not sure of what's been backburned, where it's been backburned, what's an active fire and where it is. Does that make sense? Just colour coding could actually make a significant difference for the communities.
Your point is taken. I'm not too sure that we can bring in any significant changes to fires near me at this stage, but certainly your comments, I think, are valid, and we'll take it up with the developers of the program. Can I also say that the maps that I've invited you to go and have a look at tonight on your way out The 3 maps, there's 2 of them with the emergency alert areas polygons on them, and the 3 maps contain the relevant backburns that you refer to, and you'll be able to see where they are located in regard to the previous comments that were made by Greg, and I think that might give you that little bit of more comfort, if you like, in exactly what the strategic plan is all about.
Honestly, I think you guys are worth your weight in gold. I really do, and I'm so appreciative of everything you've done. But wouldn't it give you guys relief to have the Army come in and actually help? I mean, the Army sits around and does, they're waiting to be called, and you guys are wearing yourselves into the ground. Wouldn't it be easier to have them in there as well, and at least it gives you guys some relief?
They're not firefighters.
I think the point has already been made that for the Army to come in, there needs to be a declaration of a state of emergency. That is not our call, as Greg has already indicated to you. We are operating under a declaration under the Rural Fires Act. That means that Section 44 means that the Commissioner has delegated to our Incident Controller the power to bring in all means other than the Army, because they are federally controlled. But they have already been brought into some of the fires north of here. But one of the things I think you've got to remember, that even though they're very highly trained soldiers, etc., they're not trained firefighters. And we cannot...
They'd have to help, certainly.
Just let me finish, please. They can perform a number of roles, and they do up north, and they have done that. They are providing us with some support in regard to aircraft, etc., and they are available if needed, but they are limited, and I'm sure you can appreciate that we can't put them out on the fire line because of the training, but they are able to come in and help in logistics, etc. But at the moment, it is not a state of emergency. That is up to the New South Wales government.
Hi, I've got a question. If you find yourself in a situation where you can't leave, what exactly does seek shelter mean?
Could I just find where that came from? Oh, sorry. Yeah. All homes in New South Wales since 2002 have been built to a bushfire resistance standard. Any homes built before that, of course, do not comply with those new Building Code of Australia laws. And anyone that's built a home in that period since 2002 will know what I'm talking about in regard to the bushfire provisions that you need to, or prevention measures that you need to build into your home. Getting back to your question, of course, it's what do you do if we say seeking shelter? Obviously, if you're getting that through the emergency alert, it is too late to leave. And one thing we don't want you to do, and there's one good thing about New South Wales, and I've been to all of the other states in the emergency management role, is that Victoria, for some reason, I don't know why, always has a lot of deaths in cars during fire events. And it's because a decision is made very, very late. If you go back to the 2009 fire, 173 people were killed, and a significant number of those were killed in cars. So we don't want you making that late decision to move, because you just may not get out and you will probably die the most awful death in the car I could imagine. However, your question was shelter in place. That means that you go in, your home could be 50, 60 years old. Obviously, it's going to be very, very susceptible to ember attack. And we are saying that if you go into your home and just through the passage of the front of the fire, and that usually takes somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes to pass over, you should then leave the home, because there could be, and more likely be, a chance it's on fire in the roof space, etc. And then you can, and now it's not going to be pleasant. None of this is pleasant. There's going to be embers, there's going to be heat, and it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable. But at least if you've taken shelter there, you've got a better chance of surviving than certainly getting in a car and running away, or even walking away, because even with a fire you won't outwalk it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that when I was 14, I'm 67 now, I was in the Buxton Brigade, and there is a lot of training involved for people to be safe. So even though we think we can just call somebody in or volunteers that can relieve, you can't. You need to be trained because you're working with a chemical reaction. It's not a fire that you put marshmallows on, it's a chemical reaction, and it sucks in air and it makes it worse. But look, what I was going to say, to be on a better note, as I said, I've lived in this area most of my life, and I think I've seen 5 big fires come through. And when I was in the brigade at Buxton, we were always on a budget. We were always short of this and always short of that. Now, I'm living at Buxton now. I'm not in the brigade because I've got a replaced hip and knee and they won't let me get on the truck in case I fall off. But one thing I want to say is every time a helicopter or one of those planes goes over my place, I want to chuck $2 in a jar and give it to the fire brigade. So people with and without, I'm not with the brigade anymore, but I'm just saying, one way, if you want to thank them, make a gold coin donation or whatever you can to your local brigade. They will use it wisely. They're very good people, as you've seen. They're all volunteers. And trust in the incident management team. Years ago I did an SES course, and they're doing the best thing they can do for us. The Backbird is brilliant. It's putting a barrier between us and a super fire. So be grateful for that. Put up with the smoke. Get a cotton tea towel, wet it, bring it out, put it over your face like a bush ranger. The air's a bit fresher. All right, so thank you for your time, men. Thank you, everyone. And please consider your brigade and make a donation. That is one way you can help them for the next fire or even now.
Just while we're on that point, I forgot tonight, I meant to bring a bucket or a container that you could chuck a few coins in. Bob Rogers, if you're out there somewhere, can you ever scrounge around in the kitchen and see if you can find a bucket or something that we could just have up at the back door that people might put a coin or something in on their way up to go to our local brigades. We'll share it out amongst the brigades themselves. Thank you.
Right, just one question. It's probably worth asking how long a bit of string is, but potentially we're all hoping the backburn works. If it doesn't, what's the anticipated time frame till the fire hits where the backburn is? And then how long until it kind of hits us here?
So at the fire, part of the IMT, we have a fire behaviour analyst. He gives us updates all the time about weather conditions and where it would impact if we did nothing. So at the moment we are doing something, so it does reduce, but we do work out on an hourly basis if we've got impact about how these things are going to unfold. Now, obviously, we look at 5 days ahead and 6 days ahead, and yes, if there was no intervention, the fire will impact quite quickly. But there is intervention strategies in place to be able to, like you said, how long is a piece of string? As events unfold, and what we do this evening, if that comes to fruition, the fire can spot, and what we're being told, 3 to 5 kilometres in advance with the winds. If the winds get stronger than what we predicted, then obviously that range will increase. So I don't want to give you a time frame right here and now to be held to it. You said it was going to impact it, 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon when that's not really the... So we'll keep you updated as the events unfold as to what that does. But it all depends on how we go with our fire mitigation strategies this evening and the ones that we've done over the last 3 weeks. So I'd rather not be timed to a time frame on that, because I'll probably be wrong.
That's not the answer to the question, though. We know we're all here because we want to know when to be ready and when to set ourselves up. You must have a strategy, 3 days, 5 days, or potentially 6, because some of us here go away for Christmas. And this meeting will determine whether some of us leave our homes for 4 or 5 days or we stay.
Yeah. So, well, what I could say is that you expect immediate impact tomorrow.
That's fine.
Because of the spotting potential. But I could say that now, and that's probably how best to sum it up, that yes, there could be immediate impact, as much as we did with the people at around Oakdale and Orangeville and Barombi was the same thing. The fire took a run overnight, and we were there with numerous trucks and did everything we could, but the spotting behaviour increased as the winds picked up. And these winds have the potential to create, these fires have the potential to create their own localised wind system for anyone that is involved in that. So I could say, expect impact tomorrow. No, the backburn is, as I said, without intervention strategies, but you're putting me down to time frames, so I'll just say expect impact tomorrow.
Yeah, hi, my name's Peter Hunt. I live down in Buxton near the Matai State National Park, and it seems to me that with a country with so many bushfires that the last thing you want to do is be hampered by overgrowth and fallen trees and logs and everything else. We've had bulldozers come down to the end of Buxton Avenue to clear there and at the end of Boundary Road to help you put in those fire trails. Is there going to be a plan to make sure that those trails are maintained in the off-season so that you don't have the problem again next time the fire comes?
Yes, once again, everything comes down to money and funding. As part of the Bushfire Management Committee, we do put in bids, and this is statewide, about maintaining these roads and access trails. I probably don't want to get in and blame anyone in any political environment. It's not my role. But we do work as a Bushfire Management Committee and there's a specialist bit just on fire trails. So prior to every meeting, the big discussion is about fire trails, and if anyone knows Shays Creek Road, it's probably an annual discussion with that. Just on the tree bit, you're exactly right. In any fire impacted area, in fact, I just got off the phone from the Electricity Authority, just talking about what plans they have in place for power lines and all the rest. And the trees that drop, and again, when we undertake backburning, like I said, we had that firefighter that got hit by a sizeable branch. When I mean sizeable, thicker than two of my legs put together, and that could have easily killed that firefighter. So going down any of these fire trails in good conditions is bad enough. In these conditions, it's very dangerous, and we've closed a number of roads to firefighters because of that. We cleaned the road up 4 times now, and when we come back the next day, there is just as many trees that have dropped over it. So there's areas that we won't even send the firefighters in because of that potential. So all of these things are some of the considerations that the incident management team have to take on. So as much as on the map it might look wide, you're going down there and the rest of it, those trees have been dropping, and we won't put firefighters in that position.
Sorry, if I can just make a comment on Peter's question. I spent 4 years on that Bushfire Management Committee. I'm not going to make a lot of friends tonight when I say that national parks were always reluctant, to put it mildly, to maintain fire trails. One of the major problems we have, and I've been talking to a lot of volunteers, is that the fire trails have been overgrown. In some cases they have been actively blocked with boulders and other means. And so at the last minute, we're spending as taxpayers huge amounts of money to get these trails reopened. Now in 2013, following the last fires, I got myself into a fair bit of strife because I publicly raised that issue. Because at that point, as the fires here locally had finished, national parks were reclosing fire trails. Now, unfortunately, we don't have anyone from National Parks here tonight, but I intend to take it up with our local member shortly and ask for some help and advice on that. But a question, David, you might know is that in about 2001, I think, there was a big dozer trail put in that goes right behind Bargo to Yandera. It was good access, it was a suitable point for a backburn if necessary. I don't know the answer. David, do you know if that's still operational, that track? If you don't know. Well, can I suggest that maybe that's something we need to have a look at very urgently? And I would suggest that maybe tomorrow we need to get a couple of D8s in there and make sure the damn thing's open.
Right. Just to that trial was overgrown again. Obviously, the issue of the finances for keeping the trails maintained is the problem, but how does that, and I know it's not you, if it's national parks, it's their responsibility, but could you guys, the RFS, put some pressure on national parks to actually do something or somewhere? I'm not really sure, but either way, we can talk about it's that we don't have the money, but we end up spending a whole lot of money in situations like this, so surely maintaining the fire trails and also adequate funding for hazard reduction would save us a whole lot of money in the long run.
Probably that's going to be after any fire. We'll have a review, and everyone loves a review. I'd say after this fire there'll be many reviews, and as a person that sits on that committee, I'd say that's some of the things that will be brought up. I suppose I can't wave the magic wand right here now to tell you all the answers that will come out of that, or why it wasn't done in the past. I could just say that I do sit on those committees. We do look at all these things and put in grants and bids for some activities to be undertaken. Just on how hazard reductions work, and I live in the Southern Shire, that's where I live, and I know there's a great expansive area. There's a lot of, and you know, call it what you like, climate change or whatever. Being involved for years and years in the fire service, we've had fires in July, like out of control fires. So when we put a hazard reduction burn in, there's a lot of conflicting priorities about what we do. Is it going to be too smoky and impact the Sydney Basin? Are the weather conditions not conducive to the burn? The resourcing of personnel available on the days that are best for the fire, what the fire behaviour is. I could go on a list of about 10 things that need to be considered, and at the last minute we do a pre-burn. If that pre-burn shows that this is going to make a crowning fire, and the last thing we want to do in a hazard reduction, let alone a backburn, is to lose it and impact lives, then those are sometimes those difficult decisions that we have to make. And as I said, I'm looking at now where our hazard reduction burning and our burning season is considerably reduced year after year. And in this year alone, if you know when fires started up north, we're talking August. So it is getting very hard, but as a team on that committee, we're doing our best to make sure that strategic burns are undertaken and that we keep those strategies in place.
Thank you for that. Let's hear the decks here. We know there's an awful lot of bureaucracy that's involved in getting a hazard reduction done. We know that it can take ages to get approval, and whereas compared to the old way, and I think that needs to be addressed as far as time frames, because that's ridiculous. It has to go through so many bureaucracies to get an approval, and these guys can't do their work. And I understand what you're saying, that there's some situations where you have to be careful with certain things, but you know, really, you know, smoke over Sydney, we've got surely a little bit of smoke over Sydney for a few days is worth it, so we don't have this, you know, the intensity of the fires. So I think hazard reduction is something that has to be looked at a lot more thoroughly, and I think there's a lot of people in the community who are aware of it, and I know a lot of the volunteers aren't happy about the way it's been, and I'm not naming anybody because I know they can get in trouble. So I know there's a lot of volunteers that aren't happy with the way fire reductions are managed as far as getting permission. So I think that's something that has to be addressed. I'm not aiming at you personally because it's not necessarily you that make the decisions, but I'm just saying it needs to be addressed, even though there are some times when, you know, like you said, you've got to be so careful, but there's plenty of times we can put in hazard reductions and it's not with those risks.
Hi, my name's Jamie. I'm new to the area and I'm currently living in Yandera. My question is, every other suburb has been alerted, and I've been told by neighbours that it took within 40 minutes to get from Balmoral to Yandera 5 years ago. But right now, Yandera's not on any of those warnings. Nothing at all. It's like we're just left in limbo. That's my question. I understand that the suburbs are closer, and I get that. But the fear of living in Yandera and not being used to this, I'm city, I'll be completely honest. So, and I'm watching the fire apps constantly, and yes, they have glitches, but I do constantly watch it. But I've got an 8-month-old at home, and the thought of having 30 minutes to get everything, including animals, reptiles, out of the house and her in the car and gone, freaked the hell out.
Just to extend that, also wanted to just say there's quite a few citizens that have attended the meeting that we had today at Balmoral, and they were advised, again, 35 minutes it took from the direct kind of fire from Balmoral onto Bargo, and they've been actually told to leave tomorrow, and that it's actually going to impact in no uncertain term. It's not if, it's when. So with that being the case, I'm hearing everybody else asking, what do we think the time frame is? And we're being told, well, it kind of makes us think that it's actually not as bad as it is, I guess, in some ways, because I'm talking to the people that went to the meeting today and they were told, you need to leave tomorrow because everything's coming. And yet, if we're 35 minutes away in Yandera and Bargo, in direct hit, we're being told, well, just wait, watch and see. I'm just a bit concerned that they're hearing something a little bit different to what we're hearing, and we're actually in direct hit with them. So I'm not really sure what's going on there.
I don't know that we've got... I certainly don't agree with you that our attitude is, it's coming. It's not. Because your life is just as important to us as everyone in the Southern Highlands. Now, I've heard some reports that there's been lack of meetings. I've heard reports there's been lack of information. I've heard another report that it's the same as 2013. Give us the credit of watching this fire the way it has grown. It is nothing like 2013. Now, I was here in 2013 and you weren't in Yandera, and we did have 20 minutes for the fire to come from Balmoral down to Yandera, and you were all issued with an emergency warning. Sorry, you're laughing at something.
You're saying it's not like 2013. She said 40 minutes. You're saying actually it was 20 minutes, and now you're saying you've never seen the fire like what we're going through.
No. Well, if you just let me finish, please. It is not the same fire, and if you believe it is not. It's the same as the fire that was mentioned, I think, by Ray earlier about the Blue Mountains. Now, that area that burned in Blue Mountains in 2013, most of the people there never thought that they would ever see fire. Now, the fire that we're dealing with here is nothing like 2013. The conditions were different when it started, and we all know how it started through arcing wires. And because the winds and everything else on that day were such as they were, it came down to Yandera very quick. How did we inform you? By emergency warning. We evacuated the school and we told everyone that they needed to leave now, and the direction was you go this way or you go that way, depending on actually the way that message came through. Now, we have people that live here on the interface, all the way from Warragamba down there to Colovale. And as far as meetings are concerned, they are being prioritised. All right, we've come along here tonight and we're giving you an overview of this fire. I've already told you how the emergency alerts will come to you, but above all, we've asked you all to monitor our Facebook page. Now, if you're doing that, if you're watching some other Facebook page, I'm not responsible for it. But the information that's coming in on the Facebook page, at the moment it's a little bit quieter, because at the moment there's not a greater pressure on the fire. So please do that, and if you are away from the interface and things start to change and alter over the next couple of days because of the weather, you will start to get alerts and you will have time to do what we're asking you to do. But above all, my opening remarks tonight were, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to yourselves and your families, and it is up to you to make sure that you've gone through those 5 points that I mentioned. Because another thing that I will mention here at the time, it's very important that the New South Wales Rural Fire Service will not and cannot guarantee that a tanker will be at your house. We will not and cannot guarantee that we're going to knock on your door to say it's time to go. If we can, we will. So the responsibility is very much on you, and you can do the best for us in preparing for these fires, in taking the heed of what I said with those 5 points earlier. If you're living in Yandera, okay, I can understand how you are if you've just come down here in recent times and you've got this all of a sudden on your back door. If there's an issue with this fire that it's heading towards your place, you will get an alert. But be ready, as I've told you before, to act quickly if the situation changes.
Too many women here,
We live at Pheasant's Nest, and if the fire impacts Bargo and all of that, we're going to get a lot of embers. We have one way in, one way out, and it's bush lined the whole way. We have a lot of stock, and my driveway is a kilometre long. Should I start moving stock when the fire hits Balmoral? And this is for people that do have livestock that want to hook in.
The responsibility of moving stock and that decision is yours. You've already heard from the police here tonight that certain facilities have been opened up for you to take stock to. Wingecarribee has done the same thing at Mossvale Showground, and that's been well advertised to all the people that are in the Wingecarribee Shire, particularly heading down Wombian Cave Road. So the decision is yours, but again, it has to be in your plan. If you've seen the ad on television about the horses, they said they had a plan, but they didn't enact the plan to get those horses out. So really speaking, it's up to you.
Hi, I'm from Bargo. We've only been here 5 years. We live next to a deceased estate. The people live down somewhere in Marula. We've been at council for the last 5 years to come in and do something about get them to clean up the land. The council said to me they sent out 2 letters to them and they're not complying, and so it's too expensive to go and take them to court. I'm sitting next to a tender trap, ready to go. I look after my land, but council won't do anything about enforcing things that they can enforce. Then they tell me go to the RFS, which I did, and they've said go back to council. So there's nobody here from council tonight, but what do we do in those circumstances where we have people that don't look after their properties?
Where's the person that spoke? I don't know who the RFS would have told you to go back to council. That's not the way it works. Under the Rural Fires Act, the New South Wales Rural Fire Service has a responsibility, even in fire rescue areas, to look into hazard complaints. Now, if you have not gone down the hazard complaint process, it might be a little bit, you've got to go and fill out a form and so on and submit it. We are obliged under the Act to inspect the property, the hazard property that you've alerted to, and if it's deemed that that is a bushfire risk, bear in mind sometimes they are not a bushfire risk. They might be ugly and look unkept and so on, but as long as it's been deemed a bushfire risk, we can then serve notice on the owner of that property to have works done, the works that we require to be done to make it safe for you, within a certain time frame. Now, if that time frame lapses and it hasn't been done, obviously another notice will be given, but at the end of the day, if it's not done, we will engage contractors to come in and do that work at the expense of the property owner. But you must first up go through that process of the bushfire hazard complaint for it to get into the system.
We might have to wind questions up there a little bit. Look, when we finish tonight, and I just want to ask our local member to come up and say a few words. When we finish tonight, please stick around and have a cuppa, and if you've got more questions, you might be able to ask them on a personal basis. Just want to introduce Nathaniel Smith, and I want to thank Nathaniel for his help in facilitating this tonight. But be warned, I've got a couple of questions for you as you come up here tonight, and I think there's a couple of things that I've picked up over the last few days, the last couple of weeks, that seem to be raising their head, that seem to be at a state government level, and I want to ask for your intervention. And I want to start out with national parks and the condition of the fire trails, and I just want to start off by giving you an example of what's happening out there. In 1997 or 98, I'm not sure which, we did engage the Army and they came in and cleared a massive fire trail out to a place called Mount Egan. And it was a really good trail. Had that trail been open today, I believe that it would have been a perfect staging point for a backburn hazard reduction operation before the fire got this far. It wasn't. A lot of work's gone into opening it up, but by the time it was done, it was apparently too late. Now, the thing that concerns me, apart from the safety point of view, but as a taxpayer, is that it costs a huge amount of money to get contractors on short notice in dangerous conditions to take huge machines in and open these tracks and these paths up so our RFS can use them. If national parks go ahead and spend an equal amount of money to close them because they don't like fire trailers, it's your money and it's my money. It's not their money. And I think from a safety point of view, it's imperative they're kept open, and from a financial point of view, it's imperative that they're maintained. And I mean maintained properly. So that's the first question. And I'm sorry to load you up like this. The second one is about hazard reductions. We've had some talk about that tonight. But I've talked to a lot of volunteers and a lot of people who are explaining the difficulty. I want to give you an example again of something that happened just this year. Our local brigade had planned to put quite a big hazard reduction on Charles Point Road. It was all ready to go, and the local council decided that because they had a Illuminati victim and didn't want the smoke, they vetoed it. Now, as I understand it, RFS headquarters, the council and the EPA all have a say. Any one of them can veto it. And if it gets vetoed on the day, you don't do it the next week. You've got to start the approval process all over again. If I can give you another example of what happens from our council point of view, and I know this from first-hand knowledge, when a hazard reduction is being planned, they will go in and they will tag endangered species. And our volunteers are expected to rake around or protect those endangered species. The question I've asked you today is how many endangered species are out there at the moment that have survived this Holocaust? So, Nathaniel, will you take this to Parliament? Will you discuss and ask that the process for hazard reductions be reduced to the point where it comes back to local authority? All we need is our group captains and our brigade captains to say we need to burn this, it's a suitable day, we've got the crew, we're going to do it the way it used to be done. That's the first thing. And the second thing is about these fire trails. Very briefly, third point, something that I've noticed has come out of this, and some of you may have seen it on TV, there seems to be a real dearth of the smaller type fire appliances. You know, the Land Cruiser, Land Rover, Mission Patrol type ones. And I even noticed on TV that some of those have been brought in from far western New South Wales. Some of the territory we can't get the big tankers into, and so they're getting these. So there's not a lot of them around here, and I just think that it would be prudent if we could have a look at that. I know our local brigade has got a personnel carrier that was donated by the community, and admittedly once it's donated by the community it does become the property of New South Wales RFS. They can do what they like with it, but it was taken off our brigade very early in the process and they haven't seen it back. There's obviously a shortage. So, introduce to you Nathaniel Smith. I thank him again, he's been very helpful tonight. I've loaded him up, so let's see how he goes. Thanks.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you to the RFS, the police and fire and rescue for coming out and briefing us tonight. And also, I want to start by thanking the volunteers. You guys are absolute heroes. And I've been going to fire brigades each day, I've been popping in, and you're exhausted, you're running businesses, you're working full time, you're doing shifts at night, and you're doing it all for us. So thank you very much. In terms of questions, Ray, it was a bit longer than a question in Parliament, I want to say that. But in terms of fire breaks and fire, I totally agree. And I've already written to the Minister for Environment. I've CC'd the Premier and the Minister for Emergency Services, David Elliott. I have requested that we expand our fire trails so we can give our volunteers the best possible chance, because fires will happen again. We are going through a dry spell at the moment. It's going to happen again, and we've got to try and get as much preparation done before it does happen again. And I totally agree. We have to even maybe possibly look at how we look at planning around our villages, where we need possibly up to 500 metres to a kilometre in fire breaks. And whether that's sporting fields, I know councils won't like that, because soon as you put sporting fields, they're going to be upkept, and that costs money. Whether it's cemeteries, whether it's things like that can act like a fire break to try and give our volunteers the best amount of time, the fastest amount of time to protect our homes. So I totally agree with you, and I've already written to the Minister. It was a very abrupt, pointed letter about that, the national parks and things like that. The other thing about hazard reduction, as our experts have told us tonight, we have to hazard reduction burn when the conditions are right. We're in a very dry period at the moment, and some of these hazard reductions can't be controlled once things are on. And so that's why, if there are events in the area, unfortunately they might have to be cancelled, because we have to protect our homes and the people who live in this area. And we do not want to see what happened in Victoria happen down here in Wallandilly. In terms of plan equipment, I've already written the Cat 9 is a request from just about every brigade I've dropped into to be able to get through some of these fire trails, because it's smaller than the Cat 1, the large fire trucks you see at the brigade. And I'm always pushing for more money for our rural fire service and all my other SES and other volunteer organisations. So I'll be lobbying very hard for that, and I'm sure there's going to be a review in different areas of New South Wales, what are the best equipment to use in different terrains. Because I've been speaking to the RFS volunteers every day down there in the valley. It's extremely tough to get dozers down there to do clearing. So we need to have the right equipment to deal with that right environment. So I can let the RFS know you have my full support, and I'll be fighting for you every day I'm in Parliament. So thank you.
Thanks again to the gentlemen who've come tonight to answer the questions. Not easy. Hopefully you've got a better understanding. Please feel free to stay and have a cuppa. On a lighter note, I hope you can all have a great Christmas. I hope the crisis eases before then. You can have a great time with the families. Just on a purely local note, we do have a Christmas Day service here at 8:30, short service, about half an hour. You'd be all more than welcome. Please stay and have a cuppa. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you.